friends, it's Brandy, and I've got a very special jam-packed double feature episode of Horror Media Monthly for this month. I've been a little bit behind, and I honestly have not consumed as much horror in the past 2 months. I have been delving into other games on stream, I've been delving into other shows, I've been binge watching Gossip Girl for the first time, which took up most of my time. So therefore, we're combining May and June into one mega packed episode. Just kind of on par with my normal episodes, but we're gonna get into it. But before we do, full reminder, I put up new videos here every single day at 4 p.m. Eastern. Hit that subscribe button if you want more content, and if you specifically want gaming content, I do that both on my second channel and over on my Twitch, Monday through Thursday at 9 p.m. If you want to check out that content, that's where you can do it. But let's get into what we've got, covering all of the horror media that I consumed in both May and June. Starting off, we're going to dive into the movies. I got out to a couple of different movies in the theaters. I was behind on some, and some I was like right on top of, so we got into a bunch. Starting off strong, we've got Until Dawn. Now, this movie is based off of the video game from Supermassive, and the movie itself is not a direct retelling of the game, but it is more so within the same world of the game. 1 year after her sister disappeared, Clover and her friends head to the remote valley where she vanished to search for answers. Exploring an abandoned visitor center, they soon encounter a masked killer who murders them one by one. However, when they mysteriously wake up at the beginning of the same night, they're forced to relive the terror over and over again. When I went into this movie, I feel like I felt like a lot of other people were when I saw the trailer, where I was like, this isn't the game. Why are we calling this Until Dawn if this has literally nothing to do with the game with this premise? It doesn't follow the same story. However, after watching it, it didn't matter. Honestly, Until Dawn is one of my absolute favorite horror games of all time, so I'm like very nitpicky about it. But I genuinely really enjoyed this movie, even though it wasn't a retelling of the game. It had its own story. The title of Until Dawn makes a lot of sense given the context of this movie, so I kind of see how it works. And the Easter eggs of how this is connected to the game and how it kind of ties together was really satisfying, and it was satisfying to look forward to. Not to mention, because the main characters get killed over and over and over in this movie, there are so many good death scenes. Honestly, I enjoyed this so much more than I thought I was going to, and a lot of people are giving it bad ratings. I don't know if they're rating it without watching it or if they just didn't get the whole concept. I really like this, and I strongly recommend people go check it out. Let's get those ratings up, because I feel like this movie deserves more love than it got. Then next up, I also went to the theaters to see the new Final Destination Bloodlines movie. This was another win for me. I love the Final Destination movies in general. They're very cheesy, but like interesting, and from the very beginning of every movie, you have some sort of catalyst of like how the people were supposed to die and they're saved from death, and then the rest of the story unfolds. And this one, it went about it in a different way of how everybody was connected and how it went down a certain sequence. And I won't get too into exactly what happens, but it's so worth it. Final Destination Bloodlines is about a college student who is plagued by a violent and recurring nightmare, decides to head home to track down the one person who might be able to break the cycle of death and save her family from the grisly demise that inevitably awaits them all. This movie had so many twists and turns that I wasn't expecting, because it was not your standard formula for a Final Destination movie, because the people who were the victims of this movie didn't necessarily escape death themselves. It was their ancestor who did, and they should have never been born. That's the whole Bloodlines in the very beginning of it that is like drawn out for you. So very, very interesting. I thought it was good. It has a little bit of Easter eggs to the older movies, but ultimately it is its own story that you can watch on its own. Highly recommend this one as well. It was a win for me. Really good deaths as well. Then next up, I was able to check out a movie that came out last year, and that was Blink Twice. This is the movie with Channing Tatum that was circling around, and I'm so glad that I got to finally see this because it was really good. When tech billionaire Slater King meets cocktail waitress Frida at his fundraising gala, he invites her to join him and his friends for a dream vacation on his private island. Wild nights soon blend into sun-soaked days, but when strange things start to happen, Frida must uncover the truth if she hopes to make it out alive. This movie had a bunch of twists and turns. The first part of the movie is, a little bit slower. It's establishing what is going on, who Channing Tatum's character is, his island, etc. So it's a little bit slow to get to the horror, the thriller of it all. But when it gets there, oh my goodness, it goes from 0 to 1,000 in an instant, and it never comes back down. I noticed things after the fact that I was like, oh, this synced to this and this linked up. This was such a good watch. It is the kind of a movie, though, that once you know the hook, it's slightly ruined for the later part. So I don't know if this would be as good on like a rewatch, but if you haven't checked this one out and you want your mind blown, I never thought I'd be getting, a horror movie from Channing Tatum, but now I want more. And next up, I checked out what everybody is saying might be the movie of the year, and that is Sinners. Now, this movie for me was such a pleasant surprise, which I knew it was going to be because it's Michael B. Jordan and he's gorgeous and I love him, and we got 2 of him in this movie, so how can it be a bad movie? But it was honestly so much better than I even anticipated. In Sinners, while trying to leave their troubled lives behind, twin brothers return to their Mississippi hometown to start again, only to discover that an even greater evil is waiting to welcome them back. So from the trailers, you know that Sinners is about vampires. We don't know exactly how it gets to that point, but you know that from the trailer that this is a vampire movie. Honestly, from the first 30-40 minutes of it, there are no vampires per se, and there is no horror elements for the first chunk of it. You wouldn't even really think this is a horror movie because of the lead up. I think the beginning, it could have been a little bit faster. It was a little bit slow pacing for me personally, but once things heat up, dude, it heats up so good. Honestly, my only gripe with this movie, I wanted more vampires. I wanted more scenes with the vampire stuff. I wanted the vampire stuff to start sooner, and I wanted more. Which isn't really necessarily a negative thing. It's just that I really enjoyed what they did on the later half of the movie, that I could have used an extra half hour of that in the beginning. But ultimately, there's a reason why people are praising this movie, and it's really, really good. It's unique. It's rich in cultural stories, and I think they did a fantastic job with this. My only thing was, I kind of wish that they left the vampire hint out of the trailer, because then it wasn't as much of a surprise in the movie. Maybe hint that there's something spooky going on, but maybe not give us the whole thing. Why are the trailers telling us everything? Then I checked out Fear Street Prom Queen. This is a Netflix original, the next in the Fear Street saga. There's already been 3 of these. This is from R.L. Stein's books, and I don't know if this was a direct adaptation of a specific book or not. I haven't actually read a majority of the Fear Street ones from him. I was more just into Goosebumps than some of these I saw, but this one specifically takes place in the 80s. Shady Shide's high 1988 prom queen election becomes deadly for underdog Lori when a sinister figure begins killing the candidates. So this is your typical prom night slasher movie where literally all of the ladies who are in the running to be prom queen are getting taken out one by one, or anybody in association with them taken out one by one. And the majority of the movie takes place on prom night itself. Not so much of a big of a lead up into that. But I would say, in my personal opinion, This one might be the weakest of the Fear Streets. If not this one, then part 3, which was the one that took place in 1666. That one was a little bit weaker for me. But ultimately, it's a cheesy horror movie. Don't go into this expecting super great acting or like super amazing cinematography. Like, the blood looks fake, the kills are over the top, but part of the allure of it is the cheesiness. So if you do want like a more lighthearted, like not super scary horror movie, this one works. And definitely check out the other Fear Street movies if you haven't yet. Then, after seeing the announcements for the new Conjuring movie, I never realized this, but The Curse of La Llorona is part of the Conjuring universe. I wasn't aware of that, and I had actually missed this movie when it came out a few years back. So, I was able to watch this past month. The Curse of La Llorona takes place in the 1970s in Los Angeles, where the legendary ghost La Llorona is stalking the night and the children. Ignoring the eerie warning of a troubled mother, a social worker and her own kids are drawn into a frightening supernatural realm. Their only hope of surviving La Llorona's deadly wrath is a disillusioned priest who practices mysticism to keep evil at bay. Ultimately, this movie is exactly what you expect it to be. It's kind of a possession of sorts type of feeling movie without someone actually being possessed. It had that vibe of like there's something in the house trying to get the kids, the mom's protecting the kids. It was a very cut and paste formula that we've seen in a lot of other movies with some sort of ghost or some sort of entity trying to harm a family. That being said, I don't think that necessarily took away from it, even though I was kind of predicting some of what was going to happen. It was honestly pretty interesting, and I might get hate for this, but I like this more than the Annabelle movies I've seen. I personally don't really like the Annabelle movies. They're just kind of they're just there. They exist. I thought this was better than those, at least within the Conjuring universe. However, it did make me think, how would y'all feel if I did like a ranking video of how I would rank all of the movies in the Conjuring franchise? Let me know down below if you'd like to see that. Then lastly, literally just this past week, I was able to go out and see 28 Years Later, and I have thoughts on this movie. I have thoughts. 28 years later, it's been about almost 3 decades since the Rage virus escaped from a biological weapons lab. Still living in a ruthlessly enforced quarantine, some have found a way to exist. One such group of survivors lives on a small island connected to the mainland by a single, heavily defended causeway. When one of them decides to venture into the dark heart of the mainland, he soon discovers a mutation that has spread to not only the infected, but other survivors as well. This movie for me was 50-50. It was 50% I liked it and 50% what am I watching? The first half of this movie, I think, was done really well. It establishes the story, it establishes the characters, their motivations, the setting that we find our characters in. And then the second half just like drops it all for me. We get a second like side story that then takes on the place of the main story, and the whole dynamic of the movie feels like it shifts for me. I was a little disappointed because I wanted more. And honestly, my biggest gripe in this movie is that I needed more zombies. I feel like there wasn't nearly enough zombies. There wasn't nearly enough footage of zombies, especially coming off of the other two movies where it's zombie central. I wanted more from this. And I also needed more Aaron Taylor Johnson. Needed more of that. I don't want to go too much into this to spoil it. Definitely check it out, make your own opinions of it, but I wanted more. Then in the past month, we also had season 2 of The Last of Us. Oh god, okay. This was a whole thing. As a player of the games and a huge fan of the first season, season 2 was a big letdown for me, I'll be honest. In season 2, it is set 5 years after the events of season 1. Joel and Ellie have settled in Jackson. Joel's brother Tommy is there with his wife. Ellie is now a few years older. She's like got this anger towards Joel after everything that happened in the events of season 1. They're trying to bring their relationship together, and then a new character, Abby, is brought into the mix, and crazy things start to unfold. I'm going to leave it at that to not spoil anything because the first few episodes very much set the tone for what this season is. And if you have played the games, you know what I'm insinuating. And it's hard for me to necessarily say what my biggest gripes were without spoiling things. But the way that they changed Ellie's character in this season and how different she is in this in comparison to her character in The Last of Us Part 2, the game. They're so drastically different, and I wouldn't mind it if they changed things moderate. Like, they changed things in the first season, and I felt like it worked. The changes they made here, I felt like they fell flat. I felt like Pedro stole the show anytime Joel was on screen, and Ellie was just there. And it was really disappointing, and I wanted more, and I can't even necessarily blame any of the actors or anything. I just feel like the writing fell flat. Which is so weird because you literally have source material right in front of you. Why is the writing falling flat when you can just pull right from there? But we are going to get a season 3 that's going to give us more of Abby's story, which is the new character that is introduced. I'm hoping for the best, but ultimately, after the high of season 1, season 2 was a letdown. And then we also got season 3 of Squid Game. This was the final season of Squid Game. Well, the initial series, they've already announced that there will be spin-offs coming in the next few years. So it's not the end of Squid Game as the universe of Squid Game, but it is the end of the Korean Squid Game story. In season 3, Ji-hoon and the players fight for survival in the games once again. It is a direct continuation of season 2, more like a part 2 to season 2, essentially. Got Inho welcoming the VIPs. His brother is continuing to search for the island, and the characters proceed through these games while Ji-hoon still holds on to faith in humanity in that he can potentially do something to stop them. Season 3 for me, it was a bit of two things. One, there were some storylines that I felt like were built up so much to kind of just amount to nothing. And then there was other storylines that were so predictable that the emotion didn't hit me quite the same as it did in season 1 and 2. It's hard to compare to season 1 because everything was fresh. You had no idea what to expect. So it's hard to keep at that same level. So if we're going off of just season 2, I felt like I was anticipating the deaths. I was anticipating the character choices. So when things inevitably happened, which they're going to inevitably happen, this is a show where we know 90% of the characters are going to be gone by the end of it because of the nature of it. And yet I've found myself just being like, oh, like that sucks. As opposed to season 1 where I was like bawling my eyes out. So I wanted more. But at the end of the day, I'm not unhappy or dissatisfied by it. It was still a really solid season. If anything, I think they could have gave us a couple more episodes to like tie everything together a little bit more. But ultimately, I'm looking forward to seeing what we get next in the Squid Game universe, even if it doesn't contain the characters that we do have from the original franchise. And I'm excited to see how the story pushes forward in different cultures and in different spaces. Then last, we have the games that I checked out. I really didn't check out much games. I've been delving into some other franchises and some other story-driven stuff recently. So I really only got into a couple of horror stuff. And ironically, it's all within the Five Nights at Freddy's universe. So I finally played Five Nights at Freddy's 2. These aren't my favorite games because they're super jump scare heavy, which is not like my necessarily favorite cup of tea when it comes to horror. But we did do Five Nights at Freddy's 2. You play as Jeremy Fitzgerald, a new security guard at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. It's a prequel to the first game, actually. And there are both new toys and older worn out toys that, again, it's the same premise as the first one, where you have to make it from midnight to 6 a.m., monitoring the cameras and living through the night. I'm horrible at these games, so I made it to day 2, okay? I tried, and I kept dying. These games are not my thing. my anxiety is way too high to keep pushing on, and at least the first ones don't have like a full story to invest in. So the motivation for me to push through the jump scares isn't there to like uncover the story. So I did play a little bit, but I did give up because I'm trash. It is what it is, but so be it. And then, speaking of more Five Nights at Freddy's, we got the FNaF chapter in Dead by Daylight. I was really looking forward to this because even though I'm not a huge fan of playing the games, I love the lore of it. I love the universe of Five Nights at Freddy's, and I really enjoy the movie as well. And this crossover had a bit of both. The map that they brought in is more of the game with elements of several of the games and some movie stuff. Meanwhile, the killer that we got was Springtrap, or William Afton, and we got multiple skins from both the games themselves, and we got a Matthew Lillard skin, which is the actor who portrays Springtrap in the movie as well. So we got a little bit of both worlds here. I think they really outdid themselves with the map. This killer is one of my favorite killers to play now, just because I like the way his kit is. And it brought so much more to DBD. It definitely brought the horror to DBD. The jump scares, the Mori, the animations, the voice lines. They went all out with this one, and I thank you for it. DBD, keep it coming with the horror. Then last but not least, we have the physical media. Now, I haven't been finding as much, but since this is a double episode, I have a couple of things to show off. Starting off, I actually got volumes 1 and 2 of this book series called The Inverted World. And it's like a bunch of different ghost stories and other like spooky stories and kind of more of an anthology type series. So that's the first book. And then the second book is more ghost stories in relation to stuff about the Civil War, which I thought that sounded really, really interesting. And both of these were like in pretty decent condition for Goodwill. So picked up both of those. And this cover art is spooky as heck. Really like these. Then a really cool find was this Bendy book. I didn't know that there was Bendy freaking books, but we love Bendy and the Ink Machine here, and having a book that has like more information on it and gets more into the story, I really, really like. Apparently there's other Bendy books too, so if I want to check out more, I can be on the hunt for them, but it was really cool to find this. Last but not least, such a sleeper find, I found Ringu 2. Now, I need the first Ringu, but the fact that I found Ringu, which for anyone who doesn't know, this is the actual original Japanese Ring before we had the Ring American remake come out. And The Ring is one of my absolute all-time favorite horror movies. So to be able to get Ringu 2, which I actually haven't seen this movie, I've only seen the first one, was such a sleeper find to just randomly get. I barely see The Ring at a Goodwill, let alone Ringu. So now I'm on the hunt for the first one to see if I can find that. But that is all of the horror that I consumed in May and June. Hopefully y'all enjoyed this mega episode of me covering everything that I checked out. I'll be on top of my stuff for July, I promise you. We got Megan that just came out. I gotta check that out. We've got Jurassic Park coming. There's a lot of good things dropping that have dropped at the end of June and the beginning of July that I have to get to. So this next episode coming up will be stacked as well. But thank you so much for watching. Thank y'all for being patient with me while I was a little behind on things. And I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. It means so incredibly much. And I will see you in the next one. So until then, bye fam!